Hi everyone, and welcome to today's live from sampurnahara.com. I'm Dr. Achutan Ishwar, one of the co-founders of Sampurnahara, and today we have with us a wonderful guest, Professor Krish Murli Ishwar, who is a yoga expert, and we're here to talk to you about International Yoga Day. We're here to talk to you about how we can take up yoga in our lives. So I'm a naturopathy and yoga physician. I have been practicing and teaching yoga for many years now. My journey was inspired by my father, Krish Murli Ishwar, who I'm very happy to have here with us today. Growing up, I watched him practice meditation, practice yoga every day of my life. And he has been my inspiration, the way he has transformed his mind and body with the practice of yoga and taught thousands of people how to do the same. He's conducted more than 10,000 classes and taught many people how to improve their lives through simplified Kundalini Yoga and Kayakalpa Yoga. So today, as we celebrate the International Day of Yoga, I'm happy to have you here with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And thank you all so much for joining us on Instagram Live. I hope you find the session wonderful, useful, informative, and a lot of fun to listen to. I'd like to just share a quick introduction to what we're going to be speaking today, and then we'll get started right away. We're going to be talking about what is yoga in the first place. A lot of us have this idea that yoga is just asanas or yoga is just meditation, but there is a lot more to it than just that. So we're going to be talking about what is yoga, and we're going to be talking about the various aspects of yoga, particularly meditation, which is very important during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we'll end with how to integrate yoga into your life, into your lifestyle. So thank you so much for joining us here. Professor, would you like to start with your journey, your story? You started coming towards yoga and practicing yoga during your college days. Can you tell us a little about how your journey started?
Warrior, be blessed by the divine. Thank you for inviting me to this live show. You know the story really well for the benefit of other people who are joining us today. First of all, happy International Yoga Day. Very happy to be here on this esteemed occasion. In 1984, I was in my college in CIT Coimbatore. I was attacking the exam hall like Ghazini Mohammed. You know, I had first semester mathematics, second semester engineering drawing, third semester field theory, fourth semester circuit theory. All of these, you may guess now that these are all my arrears in my sixth semester, in fact. So sixth semester exam was supposed to start quite soon in December, and here I was having something close to about 13 papers to write. So wow. I decided that I must do something about it, and I can't keep failing in my exams the way I was failing. I was a pretty studious student when I was in the primary school, probably because I was studying in my mother's school, and she ensured that I somehow studied and came first rank, not second rank. If I ever got second rank, she will make me write the exam once more. After all, it's her school. Okay, so I won't get my special privileges like a cup of coffee or some sweets and snacks and things like that. It was a slum school, but that gave me a drill of studying hard and succeeding. But all that was forgotten when I went into college, and the newfound freedom of college made me lose my way and lose my concentration. I needed to earn that concentration back, and I needed to find some practice that could bring my focus back on studies. So I searched for a solution, and my friends aptly gave me an ultimatum and told me that I have 1 day, 24 hours. This was on August 29th, 1984. That they told me that you have 24 hours to change your ways and reform yourself and start focusing on exams and study hard and succeed. They all knew that I come from a middle class family. My mother was a school teacher. My father was a railways clerk at the time. So not much of money at home, and being the only son, the entire future and hope of their family depended on me. So I found a junior of mine called Rajan, who was practicing meditation at that time in the hostel. So I went and asked him, Rajan, how can I improve my concentration powers? He said, the only system that I know of is the simplified Kundalini Yoga system by Yogiraj Sri Vedatri Maharishi. But then he wouldn't be able to teach me that. So he put me on to another master in Coimbatore, and I went to the local city center, and I found Professor Chinnasamy, who I insisted must initiate me into Kundalini Yoga then and there. So I sat in his house in front of him and told him, say, look, sir, my students, my friends have given me 24 hours notice, and I have been failing miserably from my first semester, and I need to focus on my studies, and I need to stop all those unnecessary distractions in my mind, and I need to succeed in my life. So please teach me this meditation. So sir said, come back on Sunday, because we don't teach people on, on their own sweet time whenever they walk into our centers or their homes. I wouldn't budge. I said, I need to learn today, not tomorrow. So seeing my yeah, 24 hours. Seeing my determination, he initiated me into Kundalini Yoga. It was a simple swish of the hands. He was able to bring my Kundalini Shakti from Muladhara Chakra to Agna Chakra, and I was able to sense a feeble, gentle, beautiful pulsation of my life force tingling in between my eyebrows. I didn't know what that feeling was, but it gave me some positivity. It gave me some calm. It gave me some slightly transcendental state of mind, if I may say so. So I went back to the hostel, started practicing this on a studious basis. Regularly, I concentrated. Within about 3-4 days, I was able to improve my concentration powers, twofold, threefolds, and I was able to get better. And in the next subsequent semester exams, and I cleared all my arrears and came distinction in Fortran 4, a programming language, and that eventually led me to get into the IT field. So from that time onwards, my life has been on an upward journey, so to say. I have improved my health. In fact, I used to be a joke in my college that here comes Murli to bowl the first over as the fast bowling, and the second over he will bowl medium pace. Third over he will become a spinner, because I would have serious breathing problems. I wouldn't be able to breathe really well. Our simplified Kundalini Yoga exercises, simplified yoga exercises, have improved my lung capacity and breathing capacity, and therefore my speaking ability, and also improved my overall health. I used to fall sick once every 3 months or so earlier. And now with your treatment and with your guidance on plant-based diet, I must say that, touch wood, I haven't fallen ill for the last about 3, maybe 4 years now. Never fallen, and not even fever, no headache, no body ache, and no cold cough, no dysentery, no constipation, no aches and pains, and touch wood, there have been no major symptoms of COVID either. So all of this thanks to your plant-based diet system and your beautiful guidance that you have been giving to us and the family here. And also the simplified Kundalini Yoga practices, of which 4 specific practices help me regularly to keep myself fit and to be one with nature, which I believe is the true definition of yoga. One is the Kundalini meditation. I nowadays wake up at around 5 in the morning. I conduct an online meditation session. This morning we had about 459 people join me along with me for meditation at 5:15. There is a short speech for 10-15 minutes, and then we have our meditation starting at 5:30, goes till 6 o'clock. So subsequent to that meditation session, we have exercise, simplified yoga exercises session. There are 7 into 7 sets of simplified exercises, from hand exercises to leg exercises to breathing exercises to eye exercises to backbone twisting exercises to simple acupressure exercises to reflexology exercises, and finally ending with a deep relaxation in savasana. So that kind of keeps
The whole
me
body.
energized first thing in the morning. The whole body exercise, but it's a simplified exercise, doesn't cause any pain. You don't have to twist your body in concocted fashion. You don't have to stand upside down. You don't have to really, get on to some challenging poses and postures and things like that. It's very simple. A 7-year-old child will be able to do. Our Swamiji has simplified these exercises because he was a doctor himself. He was a Unani, Ayurveda, and also a Siddha doctor himself. So he was able to study all these yoga techniques and simplify them so that normal people like you and me can practice. We don't have any illnesses, luckily, so far. So why would we have to do Kapalpati, for instance? If I am suffering from low blood pressure, then Kapalpati may perhaps help me to increase my blood pressure. But if my blood pressure is normal, why would I practice Kapalpati so many times? I can definitely practice 3 sets of 10 each, which makes sense to regulate my blood pressure and keep it steady and keep it healthy. But otherwise, it makes no sense for me to practice that. Likewise, Savasa, if you do Sirasasana, it's not something that is meant for normal human beings. So Swamiji simplified it so that these yoga exercises could help to prevent diseases rather than cure diseases. So I do that every day between 6 and 7 in the morning, along with the same hundreds of people who join online over the Zoom session, followed by another meditation between 7 and 7:30 that we do in English. So 5:30 to 6 is Tamil meditation, 7 to 7:30 is English meditation. So by 7:30, I'm supercharged for the day. I'm ready, I'm at work, and I've begun my day with a great boost of energy that keeps me going. So I started in 1984, and I wish to continue for another about 40, 50 years, or how many ever years that that nature allows me to do, and I hope to remain fit.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's an inspiring journey when people go from not being able to do something that they want to do in life to having achieved it and helping so many others achieve it as well. We have a lot of people today, a lot of my patients come to me and ask, I have this one problem, I'm not able to focus, I get stressed out very easily. Can you give me one thing that I can do every day that's a solution for that? Should I do this asana, should I do this meditation, this pranayama, what is it? And I find that a lot of people don't actually know what yoga is all about. It's restricted to this small set of practices that we do. So could you enlighten us about what is yoga? What's the goal? How do we get there? What can we achieve through yoga? Is it just about, asanas, pranayamas and meditation? Or is it a whole lot more? Is it a whole life journey?
Beautiful question. Yoga today is understood to be physical postures and movements. But unfortunately, that is a very restricted, narrow view of yoga. Yoga is not that. Yoga is remaining one with nature. So to remain one with nature, we need to understand, we need to realize what is nature. If you look at our body is made up of cells. Cells are made up of molecules. Molecules are made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of electron, proton, neutron. This even a child will know. Now, if you ask another question to yourself, such microcosmic subatomic energy particles such as neutron, proton, and electron, how do they actually function? For instance, if you look at an electron, it spins around the neutron at a pretty high speed. There is no motor connection, there is no pump, there is no electricity connection to that particular electron. How is it spinning at such a great speed? Even the neutron and the protons are not stationary. So they are functioning at a very high speed. How is it possible for it to function at a very high speed? Now, if you study, if you know the atomic structure and the functioning and the volume of each of these elements, you will know for sure that 99% of an atom is empty space. That means the volume of electron, proton, neutron, in fact the volume of electron is so negligible, is 1/2000th of an electron or a proton or a neutron. So we can ignore that safely. But the volume of neutron and proton is only 1% of that of the entire atom. Okay? So 99% is empty space. The question is it really empty space? The second question is, did the empty space come out of these proton and neutrons, or did the proton neutrons come out of this empty space? So you expand this whole thing to the body, and the body is made up of 99% of empty space. If you remove the empty space from the body, our entire volume of electron, protons, and therefore the cells and the molecules and the entire physical structure will become that of what I call a jujube. So you are a jujube, I am a jujube. That's all we are. Okay. Now you start thinking of the cosmos. The earth itself is spinning at an extraordinary speed, about 1,000 miles an hour. So this computer, this phone, and this video, this Instagram thing, this room, this house, the street, the city, and this entire country and the world is spinning at about 1,000 miles an hour around its own axis. Not only that, this earth is spinning around, orbiting around the sun at about 75,000 miles per hour. The sun itself is 19 lakh times larger than our earth, spinning around its axis once in 25 days. So can you imagine the speed in which the sun is revolving? The sun is a baby star in the Milky Way galaxy. Now there are thousands of stars like our sun which are million times larger, billion times larger than our sun, spinning at an extraordinary speed. I hope your head is not spinning with thinking about all these different kinds of spins that are happening. Now, our Milky Way galaxy itself is a very small galaxy compared to Andromeda or compared to various other galaxies. We have no idea how many such galaxies exist in the universe. Now, think of this universe. The universe is filled with millions and millions of stars. They're all functioning with a pattern, precision, and a regularity, just like our body is. Our body is also functioning with a pattern, precision, regularity. For instance, the food that we eat becomes juice. A portion of the juice becomes blood. A portion of the blood becomes tissues. A portion of the tissue becomes fat. A portion of the fat becomes bone. A portion of the bone becomes marrow. A portion of the marrow becomes the vital fluid that powers our body. Now, all this functions without your knowledge. All this functions with absolute precision. You eat good quality food, you remain healthy. You eat junk food, you fall sick. Now, who is maintaining this law within the body? Now, think of the universe. There are so many stars and so many planets. They're all revolving perhaps around their own axis and orbiting around something larger than themselves, like how Earth is revolving around the sun, how Moon is revolving around, orbiting around the Earth. So all these spins are happening with a pattern, precision, and regularity. 2000 years from today, you will be able to predict in June month of 4021 year 4021, 2000 years from today, in June of 21st, whether moon will be in full moon or in waxing phase or in a waning phase or in a new moon, etc., etc. You will be able to predict because it is functioning with such precision. There is no traffic constable, there is no traffic lights, and there is no traffic jam in the universe. It's functioning with such precision. So the question to you is, who is maintaining all of these precisions that are functioning with such harmony within ourselves and within the universe? Therefore, our rishis, the self-realized souls, came to a conclusion that the whole thing is ruled by an mighty force. They called it the almighty force, the mightiest of all forces. Therefore, almighty force. Therefore, the word God. And the only way to realize the primordial force, the origin, the Adi, or even the Anadi, the one that requires nothing. If there is one thing that God requires, the Almighty Force requires, is nothing. That means it is selfless, it is desireless, it has no ambition for itself, it is absolutely working with a complete neutral medium, only working with a set of law of cause and effect rules. That's all it is. You eat good quality food, you remain healthy. This is a law of nature. How do you then realize this law and how do you work with the law? People who dwelt more on this topic went deep into themselves. They realized that the functioning of the Almighty Force cannot be understood by any instrument or computer, or you can't go to Google and search how does God function. God doesn't have an email ID, God doesn't have an Instagram account or a Facebook account, or God doesn't even have a mobile number, He doesn't have an address. So how do you communicate with God? The only way of observing is through our own sensory observations. Unfortunately, our sensory observations have a frequency limit. An ant can sense a grain of sugar in any room, but we cannot sense it because our ability to sense the smell of sugar is limited to a frequency, and that frequency restricts our ability to sense the subtle functioning of the Almighty Force. So people who recognize that perhaps this energy is functioning at a subtle levels of frequency attempted to reduce their mental frequency so as to reach that state of subtle levels of frequency. And thousands of research has gone into that, especially in the last century or so, since the invention of this electroencephalogram EEG machine, that there are mental frequencies that govern our states of mind. So we get agitated or we function at a high beta frequency. We are calm state of mind, we function in an alpha state of frequency. We are in a deep sleep state, we are functioning at a theta frequency between 4 and 7 cycles per second. When we are in a coma stage, we are functioning at a delta frequency between 0.5 and 3 cycles per second. So people attempted to reach the alpha, the theta, the delta frequencies without slipping into sleep or deep sleep or into coma state. And the only way of doing that is to practice certain methods. So there are 4 specific methods that evolved over a period of time. These were grouped under meditation techniques. To remain one with nature, which people knew is the ultimate goal of yoga. So they said to remain a yogi, you have to reduce the mental frequencies. To do that, the first technique was Pratyaghara, which is not getting distracted with external sensory sensation, sensual stimulations. So if there is a sound, you just remain quiet and not get disturbed by the sound. For instance, you tell this to your child. You tell a child, don't get distracted by TV, don't get distracted by cricket match, don't just take the book and start studying. So this is Pratyagara technique. Idol worship, Pratyagara technique. Chanting of a mantra, Pratyagara techniques. Physical exercises, yoga, so-called the physical yoga exercises, Pratyagara techniques. Or just letting go of everything and remaining quiet, absolutely still in your mind is also Pratyagara techniques. It doesn't go below alpha frequency. It takes you to high alpha, it kicks you back into beta frequency. You can't achieve great amount of concentration powers with this. You can certainly improve some amount of concentration. So they said we need to improve the Pratyagara techniques with specific concentration techniques. Therefore, they evolved another set of practices which they grouped it under what they called dharana techniques. Dharana is concentration. For instance, breathing techniques, your pranayama techniques of certain kinds, idol worship where you remain one with that idol image. Because the mind, after all, doesn't have a shape or form or color. It acquires, like rainwater, it acquires the characteristics of the things that it often imagines. So therefore, they created many such shapes and forms and colors so that even a child can practice dharana techniques where they can focus their mind on that particular shape and improve concentration. Now remember, dharana, pratyagara is not pure meditation techniques. They are beginners levels. Any child can practice, so therefore anybody can do. Of course, there are certain other advanced dharana techniques like chanting of certain mantras. For instance, the Tibetan mantra is not taught to people who are living in hot climates like the city of Chennai or Mumbai or Bangalore, which is reasonably hot during the course of the year, unlike Tibet, which is pretty cold. It's high in the Himalayas. So there are certain techniques that were developed in certain geographical regions that were very specific to that geographical region or that style of functioning. For instance, in Quran, for instance, there are certain chanting that needs to be done only in the desert region. You should not practice it outside of the desert region or in the Middle East region. Similarly, in cold climates, certain verses in Judaism or certain verses in Christianity that came in that are not really practiced in hotter climates. So there are certain things that were taught in Tamil Nadu, for instance, in Hindu systems, or in India, Hindu systems that are not really taught outside of India or in northern hemisphere regions beyond the Himalayas. So there are many such practices of dharana that were restrictive to way of living, climatic condition, type of living, the type of food people eat, etc., etc., etc. So, but those were all simple techniques and that are today understood to be meditation techniques. Unfortunately, they are not meditation techniques. These are dharana techniques, pratyagara techniques. So therefore, there had to be a proper way of reducing the mental frequency through meditative techniques, and therefore they evolved a system called as dhyana. Dhyana is focusing your mind on your own life force, Kundalini Shakti. Kunda, Ali, Ini is Kundalini. Kunda, the fire vessel. Ali, the energy that burns within the fire vessel, that is common for both men and women. Ali means it is general neutral. Ini is the energy inside us. So the life force energy that is common for both women and men inside us is Kundalini. And they realize that this life force can be awakened. It could be awakened through dharana techniques, it could be awakened through pratyahara techniques, but those could lead to complications that could even lead to madness or diseases and health related problems, could even lead to death. So our Swamiji Yogiraj Sri Vedatri Maharshi simplified the Kundalini awakening techniques by the touch of the magnetized hands of the Guru at the tailbone. The Kundalini energy is awakened and brought to Agna Chakra between the eyebrows, connecting 4 inches behind this to the pituitary gland, so called the master gland of the body. And at this frequency, you gain control over your sensory perceptions and therefore control over your mental behavior. You are a sky master yourself. You have initiated hundreds of students into the Kundalini meditation. So you know how beautiful the sensation is and how distinct the pulsation can be felt by the master and the student within the first few minutes of initiation. But at the Agna Chakra, your brain will function at alpha, but it will slip back into beta frequency because of old habits. So it needs to be elevated from here, ascended from here to the crown chakra above the pineal gland. That is done with the power of the eyes of the trained sky master, who will then help you to remain stable with your Kundalini yoga, Kundalini pulsation meditation techniques at the Sahasrara, the Dhuriya chakra, which is gateway to Brahma, gateway to Adi, gateway to Almighty Force, whatever you wish to call it as. So from there, with the power of the mind, it is elevated beyond your body. It is taken to higher levels, to sun and the moon, and to the universal energy field, and to the Almighty Force, and whereupon you start experiencing even subtler frequency lower than alpha. 8 to 13 cycles per second is alpha. Above 14 cycles, up to 40 cycles is beta. 4 to 7 cycle is theta. 0.5 to 3 cycles is delta. You may be aware that I have gone through an EEG test in Adyar Temple of Consciousness when I went there, and I have experienced theta frequency, alpha frequency very easily. I have not gone through this test after many years now, so I should perhaps go through these tests to prove to people that an ordinary man like me, I have no special powers. I'm just an ordinary man living a normal human life. I'm married, I have you as my son, I have 2 daughters, and I have grandchildren, I have my family duties. I practice within the family. I have not become an ascetic or a sannyasi. But I have reformed my behaviors. I have become a better human being over a period of time. I'm a lot more calmer and peaceful. My behaviors have reformed, and I have become a lot more calm and peaceful over a period of time, thanks to these practices, along with the set of introspection techniques which I follow, as you know, which helps me to superimpose my old negative thinking behaviors with new positive thinking and positive actions and words and behaviors. So these superimposition techniques help me to become a better and happier human being. And I believe that I have become happier and more peaceful today. You may be a better judge of it than I am, because you have seen me what I was about 30 years ago to what I am today. So you will be able to vouch, and my family will be able to vouch for how peaceful I have become. So the ultimate aim of this for me, and of course for everyone else who is practicing this, is to reach that state of frequency with which the Almighty Force is functioning, so that we can realize with intuition, with our own inner state of mind, what Swamiji Yogiraj Sri Vedatri Maharishi realized, and wrote 75 books on this and taught it to us. And I have personally been taught by him also. Very fortunate, truly blessed to have been associated with him and continue to serve his cause in this world. So Swamiji's Vedatri Maharishi's techniques has helped me and continue to help me to reach that state of bliss, reach the state wherein I no more function with only my bodily sensations and bodily awareness. I'm not in Annamaya Kosa. I'm not in Manomaya Kosa. I am not in Pranamaya Kosa. I am not even in Vijnanamaya Kosa. Vijnanamaya Kosa. That is the awareness of the subatomic energy particle, and remaining one in the research state is Vijnanamaya Kosa. But I work towards realizing that the other end of my mind is bliss, ecstasy, and therefore reach a state of Anandamaya Kosa. And that state of Anandamaya Kosa is yoga. Long answer for your short question.
You've taken us through a journey from the atom to the universe and how we can become one with it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's lovely, lovely. When you hear, all of this explanation, and once you've taken us through this entire journey, I'm sure the next question people have is, okay, great, all of this is fine, but how do I get started? I can't even imagine everything that you've told me correctly. What is the first step? How do I get started? What would you recommend?
Today, of course, the COVID times are posing certain temporary challenges, but we have over 2,500 Sky Yoga centers worldwide. So I recommend anybody interested in getting their Kundalini awakened in a safe and simple manner, without any danger, without any side effects, to go to vedatiri.edu.in, vedatiri.edu.in, and find a local Sky Yoga master. We have centers in US, to UK, to Middle East, to India, to Sri Lanka, to Singapore, Malaysia. We have it even in Australia and Japan. So you can go to any of these centers and contact this local Sky Yoga master, fix an appointment, and get your Kundalini awakened. That is how I started my journey, and that is how I would like to recommend that you start your journey towards self-realization, towards bliss, and towards ecstasy.
Amazing. It's as easy as that. Go to a center and start off. Lovely, lovely.
Simple. And remember that these centers function with no profit motive. They may charge you very small fee, I think 100 rupees for initiation, 500 rupees for initiation, maybe 2,000 some centers in some cities, depending upon their capacity to charge and their overheads and things like that. But most of it is easily affordable.
Lovely, lovely. The other question a lot of people have is, until the COVID-19 pandemic comes to an end, we are stuck at home. Going out to office through the traffic and working in the office has its own set of stressful situations. But working at home comes with a whole other rest of stressful situations, right? We're stuck at home, all of us together in the same building all day, all night for so many months, more than a year now. What can we do to handle that stress more effectively? Because it has two problems. One is just the stress itself that it's causing. The second is the effect of that stress on our mind, which actually reduces our immunity, which increases the chances of developing further infections, of developing more severe infections, especially indirectly by aggravating weight gain and higher sugar levels, higher blood pressures, and raising the risk of us ending up in the ICU if we ever develop COVID-19. So what do we do until the pandemic comes to an end to make sure that we are protected from these stressful situations?
Look, Dr. Achyutan, my son, you know that the very birth is an entanglement. Our life has gotten entangled within the body. This is like a prison that we are living in. So just an extension of this prison is today we are living in house arrest. That's all. There's a difference. There is no difference between the time that we are born to the time that we are living today. Of course, there are certain physical freedom that has been removed from us. The physical freedom, or even the financial freedom, the social freedom, these freedoms could be taken away from us or could be restricted. But there is one freedom that can never be taken away from us, which is the spiritual freedom, the ability to differentiate ourselves from our body and our bodily function and our environment, and to remain detached while remaining attached to it. Let me explain what that means. I wake up in the morning, take a brush and brush my teeth, put toothpaste and brush my teeth. But doesn't mean that I'm carrying the toothpaste and the toothbrush throughout the day. So this is detachment in attachment. I already know how to practice it. Okay. So now we just need to practice it in a more extended manner. Don't take living inside the house or with some physical restrictions too very seriously at all. Work towards giving freedom for the soul inside, which is entangled within the body. So the simplest step to start is start doing your simple physical exercises. I wake up at 5:30, 5:15 in the morning, and I have about 440, 460 people who join me for meditation and exercises first thing in the morning. So I could give you the link, and it's free. We don't charge any money for people. They can come and join. Of course, the meditation require people to learn, to have learned this meditation to join this. But you can just, follow the instructions, and you can try and focus on your breathing and just keep your mind calm and peaceful. There's nothing that you need to really do to get started on. This is a very simple dharana technique that I'm giving it to you. The simplified physical exercises, of course, is super simple to learn, and every morning we are practicing it, and there are live demonstrations that are happening every day, and you can learn this free of cost, and you can practice this sitting at home. So I would suggest that is where you get started. And of course, there could be other techniques that could be useful for you. There could be some chanting techniques. There could be certain other pranayama techniques you can do, as long as it is taught by a trained yoga master who knows that only certain yoga can be practiced by healthy people. Not all yoga forms, physical yoga forms, are equally created for all healthy people. Some are preventive techniques, some are curative techniques. And if you end up doing it in a wrong way, or doing it itself, or doing it, overdoing it, it could lead to health complications. So avoid that. But certain exercises you can certainly practice sitting at home. We teach that early in the morning. You can join us. And I'm sure there are many other people who are teaching similar system. Find a system that is suitable for you. Start learning these things. So once you start exercising your body, heat, blood, and air circulation will begin to get harmonized. That will give you a transcendental state of being. It will help you remain a little more peaceful. That could be a nice start. Learn how to sleep. That's another great start. Many people have no idea how to sleep. They have sleep. I believe 15% of people in Bangalore are suffering from some kind of a sleep-related disorder. So sad. I sleep really well. I sleep about 6 to 7 hours every day, between 10 and 5 in the morning. And I put my head into on the bed, and the next 5 minutes I'm done. That's it, over. And 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, automatically there is a switch on mechanism. I get reconnected. I am up again, because there are 460 people waiting for me to start meditation. So I can't afford to sleep. So that puts pressure on me, but there also is a happy pressure. It's eustress. It's not distress that I get into, and that's happy. So find your team, find your support system. Maybe people in your family, your friends, like-minded souls, your other meditators or other exercise group people who can come together and set up a Zoom session or Google live session or Instagram session or anything else that suits you fine. Just get on to that group and start practicing it. That's a very nice start too. Following your plant-based diet system is another fantastic start to a yogic way of living. Food has a significant role to play in your state of mind. So if you eat good quality plant-based diet, it keeps you calm. You don't get stressed out during the course of the day. You eat all kinds of oily food and highly processed food or animal food that can give you rajasic qualities in a lot more aggressive manner, and that could lead to unnecessary distress in your mind. Another fantastic thing to start, these are all simple things, even a child will be able to do that, except the meditation part. The other thing that you can do is take a diary, take a pen every day before going to bed, list down what are the areas or what are the points that give you stress during the course of the day, and question, examine to see if you have any specific expectation of yours which is triggering this distress. I can guarantee you that without expectation, there will be no distress. So get rid of expectations. So it's a very simple thing. Supposing I want my wife to exercise, your mother to exercise every morning, it's an expectation in me, and she has other responsibilities. We have our grandchildren, she is a cancer survivor, and she has other elderly people in the house to take care. So with all the, and she is helping all you people in your businesses, and so much of responsibility, it is inhuman of me to expect her to do her exercises in the morning without me helping her in any way. So if I'm able to reduce that expectation and say, okay, let me wake up in the morning half an hour earlier and see if I can reduce her workload, and thereby my expectation is gone of her needing to do her exercises, rather I wanting her to do her exercises, and thereby enabling her to do the exercises becomes a joyful partnership, a friendship that I can extend to her. Not that I'm doing a great job of it, I'm failing it in it, as you know. I must work on it. I'm telling myself that these are ways by which it has helped me. I'm trying my level best to not only reduce my stress and also reduce the stress of all of you people. You know, everybody is working very hard in these times. Everybody is hit very badly by the COVID-19 problems. Businesses are going dull, and stress levels are increasing. Financial problems are mounting for everyone. And what can I do? Instead of getting stressed out, can I do something about it? The only way to get rid of most of these problems related to normal expectations of a happy, peaceful living with the shelter around our head and clothes and food and things like that is to plan and act. So if I'm able to write down my diary at the end of the day and say, okay, there are some 3 things that caused stress for me. I expected something to happen on time, didn't happen. I expected some money to come, didn't happen. I expected others to do something, didn't happen. All right. So these are the 3 things. Now take the first one. If I expected something to happen on time, it is an imaginary thing. Oh, what gives me the right to expect things to happen on time? Doesn't have to be. Okay, maybe I have a meeting at 11 o'clock and I expect lunch to come at 10:30 so that I can finish my lunch and start. Lunch didn't come. Doesn't come. So what doesn't come? Okay, I can have some fruit, start my class or start my work at 11 o'clock as promised, and maybe have my lunch at 11:30, 12. I'm not going to get killed. I can live without food for 30 days, 35 days. And you have trained me how to live without food for at least 20 days. You have put me on a fasting for 20 days in the past, and I have trained myself. It's okay to be hungry for these days. So likewise, you take each example. I have financial stress, and list down and say, okay, what can I do to become relevant for modern needs of the society? Okay, so I've been a bit of a marketing person in the past. Today, everybody is working on digital. So can I learn digital marketing? Can I learn to write blogs? Can I learn to make videos? Can I learn to do podcasts? Can I run a website? So these are skills that I must pick up. It's going to take time, but once I plan, my stress will go away. Okay, so working on these kind of simple introspection techniques, planning on getting rid of worries and stresses by superimposing planned action in place of unplanned stressful reactions I can get rid of my stress. And I hope these 3, 4 techniques are very simple for you to follow, and you can get started tomorrow.
Amazing. It's a complete plan. You practice meditation, you practice introspection, change the way your mind works, change the way it responds in stressful situations so that you can program it to stay calm instead of getting stressed when you have a situation that you're facing. Thank you for
Oh
sharing.
no, I'm not a saint. Not like I'm not doing any mistakes. I do make mistakes. I do commit mistakes. But to err is human. You see, you need to learn to forgive yourself and correct your ways going forward. You cannot remain the same old erring human being every day. That's not progress. That's maintaining status quo. Maintaining status quo is not progress. So yeah, there are situations in which I would fail. It's okay to fail. Learn to forgive yourself. Learn to pick up yourself from where you have failed, where you have left off, and improve yourself. So I keep telling myself that the only comparison for me in my life is my older version. Have I become a better version today than what I was yesterday? If I have, I'm becoming a yogi. I'm on my way to becoming a yogi. That is the true yogic way of living. Can I get
We
better
compare
every
ourselves
day?
to everyone around us while we actually needed to do to who I was yesterday.
That's true.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. For all of you watching this live video, the exercise and meditation techniques that we've been discussing are practiced in the Sampurna Ahara kitchen by each and every staff member. We practice meditation in a group every morning, every evening. We practice introspection, we practice communication with each other, we set expectations, we discuss our problems. In that way, we are not just a kitchen that is, preparing food and delivering it to people, but every person who joins Sampurna Ahara is encouraged to learn more about themselves, to develop their personalities, to achieve the true purpose of yoga. All of this, all the while eating healthy food. For example, here is a photo of a meditation session that we did at the kitchen today, with all the staff members sitting down and meditating together. It's a beautiful practice that completely changes the atmosphere of how we interact with each other and how we feel during the day. So thank you for introducing yoga into our lives, Professor, and thank you for guiding us and enabling us to do it. Now, we have a number of questions. I'm just going to go through them one by one so that we can answer and help people who are here. Manjunath asks, can we stop complete thoughts through sky meditation?
Possible, but difficult. It is not necessary also. What is necessary is to stop negative thinking. To get rid of negative thinking, you need to fill your mind with positive thinking. So there is an empty pot. How do you remove air from the empty pot? You fill it with water. Likewise, if you keep your mind idle, cobwebs will come, dirt will accumulate, and things like that. So fill it with positive action. Keep yourself busy throughout the day. Work towards reducing the mental frequency through the power of meditation. Eventually, you will experience the state of stillness, which is the ultimate samadhi. This is the fourth stage of meditation. Pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Sama, adi equals samadhi. Sama means equal. Adi is the origin. To remain one with that origin is the ultimate purpose of yoga. It is indeed possible through the simplified Kundalini yoga meditation techniques. There are many other techniques that can also lead you to the same samadhi state. Samadhi is not where you are sitting in a meditative pose and they are constructing one samadhi, physical concrete structure around your body and declaring that you have attained samadhi. That is actually akin to suicide. That's not actually the correct way of doing it. Although many saints in the past have attempted to do something like that for various reasons. Those cultures and the times of their life were different. and it may have been relevant on those times. I do not want to criticize. I do not want you to understand this as me criticizing their actions. I respect such saints who have attained Jiva Samadhi, but yet in modern times, the soul that has taken the shape of this body and it is functioning within the body has a purpose of birth. The purpose of birth is salvation and self-realization. Salvation is getting rid of sin imprints, and self-realization is becoming one with that unity, yoga. Okay, so to reach that, we should practice what we need to practice in terms of meditation, reduce the mental frequency, stay in silence. External silence is only a ritual, but internal silence, the so-called stillness, must be experienced by all of us. It is indeed possible through the Sky Yoga techniques.
Awesome. Thank you. Manjari asks, hold on 1 minute. Yes. So Manjari asks that working at home makes it difficult to detach yourself from work. And when I sit down to meditate, my mind is clouded with too many thoughts. It's so tough to concentrate and release my mind of it. What do I do?
Plan. What are the thoughts that are disturbing you? Take a paper, take a pen, write it down. Attend to it one by one. The mind will start cooperating with you. If I start ignoring these thoughts and force myself to focus on work, or force myself to work on the children or grandchildren or do something else, then when I am quiet, these ignored thoughts will wake up and will interfere with my other work. It is nature. It is how when you are in silence, God speaks from within you. The other end of your mind is Almighty Force. Every thought, every desire, every action, every experience of yours has become an imprint. So when your mind goes into that frequency, these imprints will expand and make you see those thoughts, experience those thoughts, which you feel as an interference in yourself. It's not an interference. It is a request from our mind to attend to it. Hey, I have this thought stored in your mind. Do you want to do something about it? So analyze it, observe it, take it, and ask yourself, what is the origin of the thought? Is it a need-based thought? Am I hungry? I'm hungry, I want to eat. Need-based thought. Is it out of force of habit? I've always had lunch at 12 o'clock, and therefore whenever 12 o'clock comes, I feel like eating even if I'm not hungry. Habit-based thought. Is it because of external environment and people are eating everywhere, and I am going around and in the middle of all of that and I see that environment, I also feel like eating? It is not my thought. It is an environmental induced thought. It is other people's imposition. There is a nice pav bhaji shop, or there is a mirchi bhaji shop or a bonda shop nearby. I'm passing by and the fellow saying, sir, hot bhaji, please come and eat. And the way he is selling it is instigating me to go and buy that and eat, even if I am not hungry. So this is instigated by others. Or is it genetic? Is it that my mother was a teacher, I feel like teaching. My father was a hard-working individual, I also feel like working even on Sundays. So this is genetic based. It could be divinity. It could be that the divine force is trying to use you to communicate something to people. For instance, this session that I'm having is a kind of a social requirement. It's a divine requirement to communicate this message to the people so that they can. So my job is, every time a thought arises in my mind, take a piece of paper, take a pen, write down, why did I get this thought, and analyze it. Once I come to a conclusion that this thought is a positive thought, meaning it will not hurt me or others now or in the future, physically or mentally, I then plan to work on this. I categorize. I say, okay, it's a nice thought. I need to maybe plan this better. I need to do this every day, half an hour for the next some 3 months, 6 months, so that I can finish this task. Or if it turns out to be a negative thought, which will either hurt me or others now or in the future, physically or mentally, replace this thought with a positive thought using the power of auto suggestion and visualization while your brain is functioning at the alpha level of frequency between 8 and 13 cycles per second. So you subtle frequency you superimpose through autosuggestion. For instance, let's say there is a habit of waking up late in the morning. By visualizing the benefit of waking up early in the morning, your mind, your brain gets the power to automatically tune your nervous system and the muscle system to wake you up in the morning. So the hypothalamus starts to function to see patterns that could strengthen this belief system that waking up in the morning is equal to good health. So in a matter of time, you will be able to start streamlining your behaviors and bring your mind under your control. If you try to control it, it's like a monkey, it'll jump up and down. You will not be able to gain control. If you try to understand it, the mind will come under your control. Understanding is about listening. Listening requires you to remain in silence. That is why the words silent and listen are spelt with the same letters. So practice silence. Take a pen, take a paper, listen to your mind, write down the thoughts, analyze, get rid of negative thinking, superimpose with positive thinking. Do this 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour every day. Within the next 1 week, distractions will stop.
Amazing. It's a complete systematic approach to getting rid of distractions. Thank you for sharing that. We have come to the end of 1 hour in this live session. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing these amazing, guidelines and thoughts and step-by-step procedures on which we can attain the ultimate purpose of yoga, becoming one with nature, attaining a better personality within. My last question, which people have asked, is how do they attend the live class every day? Can they come to your profile and click on the link there?
I don't know how to do this on Instagram. I'm not used Instagram regularly. I will give you the link. Maybe you can share it with the people who are watching this video, and you're most welcome to join us in the morning. Looking forward to having you in the morning sessions.
Great. So all of you are watching the video, if you'd like to learn more and join the sessions, we will work on putting up the link on Professor Krish's bio in about an hour's time. You'll be able to go there and click on it and get started. So thank you so much for joining us, and wishing you all a very happy International Day of Yoga. I hope today's session has helped you to take the first step towards realizing yourself, towards becoming a better person inside and achieving peace inside, becoming one with nature around you. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Professor, for joining us. Have a great day. Be blessed.
Be blessed by the divine. Sukhino Bhavantu. Thank you.
Thank you.